My visit to Singapore was one of the most thrilling experiences I've had in recent years. I had heard so much about the country's modern architecture, bustling urban life, and diverse culture that I knew it was just a matter of time before I'd explore it for myself. After having visited many iconic places around the world, including the Burj Khalifa and Istanbul, I was excited to see how Singapore would compare. From the moment I arrived at Changi Airport, I could feel the efficiency and modernity of the city-state. The airport itself felt like a destination, with its indoor waterfalls, gardens, and luxury shopping. The Jewel, in particular, left me mesmerized. That massive indoor waterfall cascading through lush greenery was like stepping into a futuristic world. It gave me the perfect first impression of what was to come. I decided to stay in the Marina Bay area because I had always wanted to see the famous Marina Bay Sands up close. When I first caught sight of it with its boat-like structure perched on 3 towers, I couldn't help but be amazed by the sheer ingenuity of the design. My room had a spectacular view of the skyline and the Marina Bay waterfront. I felt like I was living in the future. One of the highlights of my trip was walking through gardens by the bay. The Super Tree Grove was like nothing I had ever seen before, towering structures covered in exotic plants that seemed almost otherworldly. At night, the light show took my breath away. The trees lit up in sync with music, turning the entire garden into a magical, glowing landscape. Next on my list was Sentosa Island. After taking the cable car from Mount Faber, I spent the entire day exploring the island's attractions. Universal Studios Singapore was a blast, bringing back childhood memories with its exciting rides and immersive experiences. But what really stood out to me was the SE Aquarium. I had visited the Caribbean Sea for exploration, but seeing the marine life up close in the massive tanks, especially the manta rays gliding gracefully by, was awe-inspiring. No visit to Singapore would be complete without tasting the local food. Hawker centers were on my radar from day one, and I made sure to visit the Maxwell Food Center for some authentic Hainanese chicken rice. The dish was simple yet packed with flavor, and I couldn't believe how affordable the food was, given Singapore's reputation as a pricey city. I also ventured into Chinatown, which was bustling with activity. The mix of traditional and modern Singapore was evident as I walked through the narrow streets lined with shophouses. I visited the Buddha Tooth Relic Temple, a stunning architectural piece with intricate details. Inside, I was surrounded by the peaceful hum of chanting monks, which felt like a stark contrast to the busy streets outside. Little India offered a different cultural experience altogether. The vibrant colors, aromatic spices, and Hindu temples were a feast for the senses. I spent hours just walking around, soaking in the atmosphere. The Sri Veeramakaliamman Temple was one of my favorite stops. Its intricately detailed tower was covered with statues of deities, making it a striking sight. After a few days of exploration, I decided to relax a bit. So, I headed to the Singapore Botanic Gardens, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It was the perfect place to escape the city's fast pace. The Orchid Garden was a highlight with its vibrant flowers and peaceful ambience. I found a bench, sat down with a book, and enjoyed the quiet serenity. Shopping was another exciting part of my trip. Orchard Road was the place to be for retail therapy. From luxury brands to quirky local boutiques, it had everything. I ended up spending hours just wandering from one mall to another, admiring the high-tech layouts and indulging in some much-needed shopping. One of the most memorable moments of my trip was visiting the Art Science Museum. The building itself was impressive, resembling a lotus flower, but the exhibits were equally captivating. I spent hours exploring the Future World exhibition, which blended art with technology in an immersive experience. It made me feel like I was walking through a digital dream. As evening approached, I made sure to head back to Marina Bay Sands for a swim in the iconic infinity pool. Floating above the skyline, with panoramic views of Singapore, was surreal. The sky turned shades of pink and orange as the sun set, creating a picture-perfect moment. It was one of those rare times when I felt completely at peace, floating above a city so full of life. One evening, I went on a river cruise along the Singapore River. It was the perfect way to see the city's historic landmarks, like the Merlion and the Fullerton Hotel, while enjoying a leisurely boat ride. The sight of the Marina Bay sands illuminated against the night sky was unforgettable, and it gave me a deeper appreciation of Singapore's blend of tradition and modernity. Clark Quay was another vibrant area that I explored at night. The riverside was filled with restaurants, bars, and lively music. I ended up dining at a riverside restaurant, enjoying chili crab, a must-try dish in Singapore. The sweet, spicy sauce was perfect, and it quickly became one of my favorite meals during the trip. The contrast between the modern skyscrapers and the rich history of places like Kampong Glam, with its majestic Sultan Mosque, added layers to my understanding of Singapore. The blend of cultures, from Malay to Chinese and Indian, was evident everywhere I went. It was fascinating to see how these diverse elements came together to create such a unique city. As I wandered through the city, I couldn't help but notice how clean and well-organized everything was. From the public transport system to the green spaces scattered throughout the urban landscape, Singapore had a level of order and efficiency that was truly admirable. My last few days in Singapore were spent revisiting some of my favorite spots. I went back to Gardens by the Bay just to soak in the beauty once more. I also made another trip to Sentosa, this time to relax on the beach and take in the sun. The clear waters and soft sand were the perfect way to unwind after a week of exploring. Before leaving, I made sure to visit the National Gallery Singapore, which housed an impressive collection of Southeast Asian art. The building itself, a mix of the former Supreme Court and City Hall, was a masterpiece. It was fascinating to walk through the galleries, learning about the region's history and art through its beautiful exhibits. As my time in Singapore came to an end, I found myself reflecting on how diverse and vibrant the city was. From its ultra-modern skyline to its rich cultural districts, Singapore was a place where the past and future met seamlessly. Every corner of the city had something new to offer, and I felt like I had only scratched the surface. The people I met along the way were incredibly welcoming, and I found it easy to navigate the city thanks to its excellent infrastructure. Whether I was hopping on the MRT or grabbing a taxi, everything was convenient, which made my trip stress-free. On my last night, I took one final walk along Marina Bay. The city lights shimmered on the water's surface, and I felt a deep sense of contentment. Singapore had exceeded all my expectations. It wasn't just the places I had visited, but the energy of the city that left a lasting impression. As I boarded my flight back home, I couldn't help but think that I would definitely return to Singapore one day. There were still so many hidden gems to explore, and I knew that the city would continue to evolve, offering new experiences each time I returned.